Welcome to the podcast, A Drink with Derek. Follow comedian Derek Richards on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe to his YouTube channel and watch all episodes of the podcast. Now grab a drink and join your host, Derek Richards.
Not that I've had my own problems with driving in the law. I'm actually a Florida native. By applause, how many Florida natives we have out there? Woo! 9 of us. We're probably related. Let's face it, the family tree down here is a palm. Not a lot of branches. Grows some giant ass nuts. We know, we see the news. Every time something weird happens on CNN, the entire state of Florida goes, oh God, no. Not us. It's always us. I love living in Florida, I really do. The only thing I don't like about living here is to get to most of Florida, you have to drive through Georgia. We have any Georgia people? Good. That's a scary state, especially if you can read. Cops will pull you over, make you get out of the car, do your ABCs. They don't think you're drunk, they just want to know. I actually got pulled over by one of them big old rough, tough state troopers, so I do that typical girl thing. Blowjob. Like I got the time to cry. I was in a hurry. Okay, some of you people are going to have to lighten up. I did not give anybody a blowjob. I offered. And I think that's what pissed her off. Maybe you should let your hair grow. She had a flat top. And a bald spot. That shit is confusing. Let's do another survey of the room out there tonight. How many guys do we have out there that are with women that they understand? We got one guy back there clapping, his wife's like, he doesn't understand the fucking question. Dude, that is not your fault. There is actually a really good reason why most of the time you can't understand us. We are just making this shit up as we go. That's why we take a girlfriend to the bathroom with us. She's in there helping us make shit up. Go out here, go into the women's bathroom. You're fighting 2 women and they're going, okay. Let's go back out to the table and act like we're pissed. And when they ask what's wrong, we're telling them we're fine. We love to confuse you guys, we did. And Lord help you, we will do some evil shit to do it. Say that very first time we're going to make love to that special gentleman. We will wait till he is entirely naked before we say something like, maybe we should just talk. He looks back like, of course it makes that sound. Reconsider. That was a big dick joke right there. Laughing, a little confused right there. You were looking at me like, I've never heard one make that noise. Is it like a seashell? Do you hold it to your ear? If you do, be careful. Those things go off. You think water in your ear is bad. For a week, you can't hear dick.
Hey, it's a drink with Derek. Derek Richards here in Las Vegas. That the lady you just saw on the video is here with me now. She is a comedian based out of Fort Myers. She was. I'm going to throw this in your intro. You were Little Miss Fort Myers. Was that correct?
I was. Yes, I was.
When you were 5 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. Mom thought I was going to be Miss America. Sorry.
You've also seen and heard her on Mom's Night Out. She was in the indie film Pose Down in 2009. She's been on the Bob and Tom Show, twice invited to the Boston Comedy Festival, also the Las Vegas Comedy Festival. Good friend of mine. Haven't seen you in a long time. Great to see you now. Valarie Storm in Fort Myers. How are you, my dear?
I'm good. I'm good. Holding down the fort here.
I know. No kidding, right? You were telling me before we started recording that you're so excited to get back out and start working again because you've been sitting at the house feeding squirrels.
Yes, I have. I think squirrels communicate because now I have like a little tribe. They get a little threatened when you walk out the door. They're like,
it's a bunch of fat bastards now. You're feeding them all the time.
They fall out of the trees in my house.
Well, I always like to do a segment called Get to Know the Guest in 3 questions. And so I got 3 random questions here for you.
Okay.
All right, here we go. If you are in a bar fight, what is the music that you want for your soundtrack?
I would have to say something by Michael Jackson, but I don't know the names of any of the songs.
Really? Okay.
The one where Dirty Diana, is that
Dirty
it?
Diana? That'd be a good bar fight song. I'm digging that. What is the worst pickup line you have ever heard?
I took a Cialis yesterday, and they're good for 72 hours.
Are you serious?
I am dead serious.
Please tell me somebody said that. How many?
It was.
How many people do you roughly estimate you blocked on Facebook during the pandemic/election cycle?
I don't know, but I've lost feeling in this fingertip.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people.
It was, you couldn't, I couldn't mute enough people.
I have snoozed so many people, I'm practically a hypnotist.
Well, anybody that knows you knows your schedule would normally be absolutely insane. You're on the road constantly. Now, with this show, obviously being a drink with Derek, is your drink still double Southern Comfort and Neat with a Diet Coke back?
It is not. I have jumped ship. I am now a vodka girl. I don't really drink that much anymore.
Okay.
For my safety, for pretty much everybody around me.
So that the Dirty Diana song doesn't have to come up?
No. I like Tito's vodka specifically.
Right. Oh, that's my girlfriend's drink. Tito's cranberry splash of soda.
I only really drink with like really good friends, because they know me. It's just being Val.
So in other words, just set aside some bail money and
yeah, exactly.
I love that. Are you a gambler? Do you gamble at all?
Only when I get married.
Hey, come on now. I love this game. I found this at a garage sale. Little roulette thing that you give to your kid play. So I'm gonna see how lucky you are. So what? Pick a couple numbers here real quick.
Okay, 13.
All right, it's spinning. This thing takes forever. I know it was made for kids because it's trying to keep a kid occupied. So we're gonna go with 13. That's it.
Yep.
13. It was 31. So you boxed it. Close enough.
I'm dyslexic lucky.
That's considered a win. What did you do in your prior life before you were doing stand-up? I've only known you doing stand-up. You and I worked together on several occasions up in Milwaukee. We worked in Fort Lauderdale years ago. What did you do before you started? Because you started doing this full-time back in 1997. Is that correct?
Right, yeah. And I'd only pretty much been doing it like 3 months when I went pro, which I don't suggest. But back then you can make money as a feature act, or as a MC. But before that, I worked like every position in a restaurant, from busboy to manager. And then at the end there, I was writing and producing commercials for radio.
Oh, very cool.
Okay.
And what now?
I quit that job because I had a boss. He was very, very mean, and not specifically to me, but there was another girl in the office. And one day she went to take a donut, and because for some reason in radio they feed you, and there was donuts there, and she took one, and he goes, "You really think you need that?" And she was a sweet girl. Tears started balling up in her eyes, and I told him that if he couldn't grow an extra foot in the next 5 minutes, he shouldn't be concerned about what she's eating. And then 10 years later, he had to interview me because I was the comedian working at the local comedy club in Tallahassee.
Oh, that's funny. Can you imagine somebody saying that to somebody today? That would be a hashtag in a second. He would be lynched in the town square.
Oh, he was just mean. He was a mean man.
So did you get into comedy right after your radio gig?
Yeah. I just started doing it. I was in the radio, and then I did a couple open mics and whatnot, and took Les McCurdy's comedy class. And that's all she wrote. And when I quit my job, I called Les, and Les had got me on doing MC work for Comedy House Theaters, if you remember.
Oh, I remember that chain.
Yeah, they had six different rooms, and I could work each room consecutively, and kind of kept me busy. And 8 shows a week. You grow fast.
Yeah, because now you don't have those options. I mean, because all those clubs back then were at least Tuesday through Sunday, if not Wednesday through Sunday. And so, yeah, you could just get a ton of stage time and get better. Now you have so many clubs that are just Thursday, Friday, Saturday, if you're lucky.
Yeah, and they all use a local person for their MC work, so. Oh,
yeah, exactly. And then a lot of times they don't even pay that person.
Yeah. You can do it for the stage time.
Yeah, yeah. God. Since you've been doing this since 1997, how hard was it doing this as a single mom? Because I met your son years ago. That had to be 1999 when you and I worked together with John Panette in Fort Lauderdale, or Davie, Florida, at Uncle Funny's. And how old was your son Mason at the time? He had to be, what was it, maybe 5 or 6?
Yeah. He was born in 94, so he was. And when did we work there? 99?
Probably somewhere in that neck of the woods.
Yeah, so he was 5 or 6, depending on what time of year it was. John was great to him, though. John kept giving him money to go next door.
Go to the video place next door. I remember that. John Panette was just hands down, and people, if you're listening or watching this, I mean, familiarize yourself with John Panette. Hands down, one of the funniest people, and off stage, just one of the most solid humans that you would ever run across, and God rest his soul. But how hard was it for you to do this when your son's growing up?
Well, being a single parent's hard no matter what you do. It's kind of like tag team wrestling, and nobody ever tags you out. You're like, oh, wow, there's a mess. Who's going to clean that? Me again? Oh, great. And so a lot of times I would take him. He's hung out in green rooms with some of the greatest comedians on the planet. And, he's he's grown, he's responsible, he's very intelligent, deeply funny. And usually the guy I will bounce all my material off of. So,
he was a great little kid. I always thought since day one, he had the greatest name ever, at Mason Storm. That sounds like a linebacker for Florida State or a porn star.
Well, my mom picked out the name Storm, which was kind of out of character for her. And I was like, okay. And I picked out Mason. And about 3 weeks after I was born, she called me. She goes, I wanted to name him after that newscaster, but his name is Stone Phillips, not Storm Phillips. And I was like, so we are named after no one.
Stone Phillips. Wow, that's a throwback. Here's a question. Is it harder or easier for a woman in this business today than it was when you started? Or is it the same?
Well, it's not considered PC anymore for a booker to tell you that women just aren't funny. So I heard that a lot when I started, and now it's kind of, they can't say that no more. Yeah. It's not nice. So,
well, some douchebags still think it, but yeah, they're just not going to flat out say it to you because it's going to end up on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or something like that. So
at the end of the day, it's not male or female. Funny wins the game.
Well, it's tough though in this business. I mean, it is, at the end of the day, it's a boys club. And I mean, you have very, very few people that are in positions that are managing clubs or that are booking that are females. And so is it, I mean, I know I've heard so many horror stories from female comics talking about something that some douchebag booker or a club manager or somebody tried to pull. And yeah, I can see by the smile on your face, you're going, oh yeah, every shithead move that was ever pulled on you is racing through your head right now. What are some of your favorites as you look back and go, I can't believe that I was in that situation?
Well, one of the worst things that ever happened to me, and it wasn't because I was a woman, it was just because these guys were jerks, is I was working a week up in Wisconsin, and a one-nighter wanted to hook me up the day before my week started at the comedy club. So I was like, yeah, extra money. So I check in, do everything. I show up at the gig, and they go, we promoted the wrong date. So we're not going to have the show. And I'm like, okay, but I'm standing here. I drove in from Florida. I said, so you're going to have to pay me. And they were like, no, we're not going to pay you. And I'm like, I think you are. And they had 3 bouncers remove me from the premises. And then they called and had me kicked out of my hotel. And that was the worst I've ever been treated at a club.
How long ago was that? Do you remember the year? Rough time frame? Were you relatively new in the business, or were you
maybe 2004, 2005?
Yeah, that cracks me up. I wouldn't want to mess with you. I wouldn't. You're not
you talk about the boys club. I grew up in the boys club. I have nothing but older brothers.
No, exactly. That's what I was getting at. It's it's not like I think you're a complete unhinged lunatic, but I could but I would not want to be the person to tell you, no, I'm not going to pay you. Oh,
it didn't go well. So, but they did not pay me, in fact. And I did leave the premises when the bouncers, but.
I had somebody not pay me one time at a gig, and I'm not going to say where it was at, but I literally went back to the hotel, and it was in a hotel, and they didn't take my credit card for incidentals. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting paid. And so, I mean, it was garbage money. It was, making like $50 or whatever to be the middle act. And they went, yeah, we're not going to need you this week. And I'm like, I drove 4 hours to get here, not Florida to Wisconsin drive. It was just across Florida. And I'm like, no, I'm getting paid. And I didn't say this to the guy, but I ended up going back to the hotel room, and I ripped the TV off of it was a cheap hotel. So the TV was mounted on that Lazy Susan kind of thing.
Oh yeah, where they bolt it down.
Yes. So I was lit up, and I'm like rocking this TV and pulled it out of its moorings. And so the wood screws are hanging, and there's the shards of the particle board stuck to it. And so I grabbed it and threw it in the back of my car, took it back home, and ended up taking it to a pawn shop. And the guy behind the counter at the pawn shop was right out of Central Castings on all the fingers. And he's, big heavy set guy with like a ton of chest hair popping out of his shirt that's unbuttoned down to here, who probably took Cialis and said it was good for 72 hours. This is probably that guy. This is probably that guy that hit on you. And he gave me $60 for the TV set with all the crap still stuck on it. So
that's fantastic.
Oh, I couldn't believe that I sold it. I could not believe that I actually was able to get rid of that. What, you've been in this business now, well, let's see, since 97 full time. So you're looking at 23 years.
Yeah.
What would you go back, look at you when you started and look at you now. What would you tell the younger version of you, if you could share any advice with her?
Not everybody has your best interest at heart.
Was there any lesson that sticks out in your mind?
How many times people have called me and go, do us this favor and we'll remember you on the back end and da 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 da. Never once has anybody ever remembered me on the back end. Not once.
Now, were these people that you had a relationship with before they asked you to do this favor?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I still work with to this day.
Yeah. See, I'll be curious to see how this ends up shaking out as as we record this on the back end of the pandemic. Right. No, because there's been certain, clubs that you go to and they're like, hey, the pay is going to be this now while we're going through the reduced seating capacities and the mandates and everything. And you go, hey, you know what? I've got a relationship with you. That's cool. So now I'm going to wait and see come 6 months down the road when everything's back to quote unquote normal. If they end up making good on their promise of, hey, we'll get you back here at the rate that you should normally get. So it's a lot of people don't realize that. There's entertainers out here in Las Vegas. A lot of the casinos don't want to pay these musicians to
step up and go, you know what? Thank you for helping us out. We're back on our feet now. We got a full house and, thank you. And there's going to be some that are going to go, well, we're still trying to work it out. Well, so is everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, including the person standing in front of you that you're giving your sob story to.
Right.
I always crack up with that. When you're talking to a club manager or a club booker, and this doesn't happen with all of them, but some where they just want to start crying poor in front of you.
Yeah. Then they go climb in their $75,000 vehicle and drive out of the parking lot.
Exactly. Or even if they don't climb in their $75,000 car, it's like, listen, if this business sucks so bad for you, close your doors. There's no shame in going out of business. Happens all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't make any money when I was first in comedy, but that's never the reason I did it. I never was like, I'm going to get in comedy and I'm going to make a lot of money. And still this day, it's never a reason I make any choices that I do make. I like that sound,
Mm-hmm.
that sound when you hit that joke and then you can see the people rocking back and forth in their chair and then you hit them again. And that sound, I love it. And that's the whole reason I do it.
Well, the fact that you make money also helps.
Yeah, because, otherwise I wouldn't have this fancy little computer. It's nice lighting. I like lighting. I like food. Food's good. But to this day, my car is, 12 years old, I think, 10 years old. I don't even know.
No, mine's 8, 9 years old now too. So it's, it runs great, looks good. I have zero issue with it. So yeah, I love doing this too, but it's what I think sucks, and it goes with any artist, doesn't matter whether it's a singer or a painter or a comedian or a writer, is that the people that seem to be in, not all the people, but a lot of them in the decision-making, financial end of things, where they end up taking advantage of people that love to do their craft and subsequently will lowball them and then make a lot of money off of their ass.
Oh, yeah. I had a booker once, and I'd worked a club, and then it changed bookers. And then they wanted to bring me back 6 months later for half the money. And then when I told them, well, I'm not doing that, all of a sudden I was a problem child. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Where did the rest of the money go?
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and back in the 90s, it went, I'll tell you exactly where it went. Did you ever try to get paid in drugs or anything other than U.S. currency?
I have been offered, yes. But I don't need any drugs that are going to make me talk more. I
had a guy offer me, it was when Ice House beer first came out. Ice House and beef jerky.
What kind of beef jerky?
God, it was Slim Jim. It was
Looking, because I like beef jerky.
It wasn't the heavy ones either. It was the long ones that you get at like Costco or Sam's Club.
Ah, all right.
And I could just tell that the guy wasn't going to pay us. He wasn't. We're sitting at the bar, and myself and the other comic are sitting there waiting. And the guy goes, "Oh, you want a nice house?" And he cracks one, sticks it in front of me, and then he cracks open another one 2 seconds later. So now I have like 3 or 4 Ice House in front of me, and like 6 or 7 things of beef jerky. And the other comic looks at me, and goes, I think we're gonna get screwed here. And I'm like, yeah, there's probably a pretty good chance of that. We eventually got paid, but it took a lot of coaxing to finally go, hey, we're here for garbage money. Just pay us.
Yeah.
What about the Ice House? Never thought I'd hear this explanation. What about the Ice House and the Slim Jims? Really? Okay.
I would have taken the Slim Jims along with it, just from
taking it for the ride home. What we've all bombed on stage. What advice, if a comedian's on stage and you could get in their head, a younger comedian who's bombing, what would you tell them in their head when they're in that moment when the audience does not care about anything they are saying?
Take a beat and slow down, because the very first thing that a young comic does when they're bombing is they speed up, and just to get through it, and it doesn't make it any better, you know. And don't get defensive. You know, I've seen people just absolutely explode on stage. Even veterans explode on stage when an audience is not laughing at them, you know, or if they're not getting the response that they thought. And, you know, calling a room full of people a bunch of a-holes is not going to put them going, well, you know what, we should give this guy a chance. A-holes, you know, that has never happened. They're done then. Slow down.
Through all the years that you've done this, any regrets in this business?
Yeah, I regret that I didn't burn that place down in Wisconsin.
That's the sound of someone who clearly needs more Tito's.
Still upset about it. Still upset.
No, but I mean, any decisions that you made, did you ever think that when you started off in doing this, you're taking Les McCurdy's comedy class, was there ever any motivation to try to go to New York or Los Angeles and do something like get into writing or do more film? I mean, when you look back at it now, you're like, I should have done X, Y, or Z, whether it was to go to New York or Los Angeles or just do something different with the direction you took with your career.
Well, not a popular thing to say, but it would have been New York. I've been to LA, you know, several times for some work projects, and it's just not my cup of tea. Yeah, of course, we all have regrets, you know. Should have taken that call, should have gone to do that guest set that night, you know, this guy was here or whatnot. Yeah, you know, everybody has some regrets. But the thing I really regret is not burning that place down in Wisconsin.
Now, would that go down as the worst gig? Well, you didn't do the gig, but is there a gig that you did that still sticks out in your mind to this day? Everyone, as comics and even as people that listen to these podcasts, you know, they don't want to hear about the story where you absolutely destroyed the room. They want to hear about when you wanted to destroy the room. Not unlike your situation in Wisconsin where you wanted to torch the place and burn it to the ground.
It still could happen. It still could happen.
The day's young, and the vaccines aren't rolling out any quicker. So you got time to get up there and make it happen.
I do remember one, and it was one of my I was a new headliner, you know, just trying to get my whole act together. You know, I had it, but it was, can I mention the club's name? Because you know it.
Whatever you want.
It was Groucho's when it was in the Japanese steakhouse thing, which could be a rocking little room, but they had this huge biker. He was like 6'7", huge dude that came to the show, and he was heckling everybody. And he was not just heckling him, he was intimidating the whole room. He was really just mean. So, I mean, he destroyed the MC and then destroyed the feature act. So, you know, and he'd been called every name in the book. And I kind of got up there and took a different tack with him. You know, I'm like, hey, dude, you know, calm down. Everybody's here to have some fun. We all got a little money invested. Just kick back. And he was pretty good for about 25 minutes. And then I said something that pissed him off, which is a lot of my stories start with those words. I said, it pissed him off. And I told him, I said, sir, you're going to have to leave. Because I thought, I have a room full of, I had some bouncers in the back. They're going to come and get this guy. And I'm like, they're going to come and they're going to, you know, we're going to escort you out of the room and they're going to come and they're going to escort. Are you guys coming? And nobody came. So then
no, I've done that room and I know the guy who runs it or ran it. So yeah, he's not throwing out a biker.
No. So then the guy gets up and he's going to beat my ass is what he said.
Was he there with anybody? Do you remember?
Yeah, he was there with another biker and their girls, or as they called them, old ladies, which
that's charming, by the way. I hear you women love it when guys say that.
Warms my little heart.
When you tell your old lady you're taking Cialis. And it's
Yesterday, for someone else. But it's
yesterday. Hey, you know, still got a little gas in the tank.
So this guy gets up and, you know, and the only thing I know is you don't abandon your stage. You know, that's one of the things I was taught as a young headliner. So I'm like, oh, I guess I'm going to get in a fight. And some guy stood up in the back, some big old Iowa farm boy, you know, just a big dude. He's like, you're not touching her. And that's when the fight broke out. And I mean, tables were everywhere and people were screaming, drinks were knocked off tables, and they'd already called the police to come get this guy. And right then those double doors burst open and they come in and they get the guy and they drag him out. And all of a sudden it's just eerily quiet and you can hear him fighting down the hall to get him out of the building. And then very quietly, everybody just starts picking up their tables and their chairs, and then they all sat back down and just looked right back up at me. And I thought, oh, I still have 10 minutes left. Close with the fight. And I did do those 10 minutes.
But that's cool. I mean, listen, the audience was there to have a good time. The disruption was removed. And I'm sure at the end of the night, the gentleman that runs the Groucho's room probably blamed you for inciting the riot.
No, actually, the guy that they pulled out, they did not arrest him or anything. He went on home, and then he called to leave the greatest message on the answering machine I've ever heard. And that's a big regret I have, that I didn't take this tape with me when I left. He called and said he was going to get me arrested because I made everybody hate him. He was clearly sobbing during the phone call. That I made everybody in the room hate him. And I was a mean person. And
this is like, the biker guy?
The biker dude. Apparently, I guess his wife was mad at him and his friends were mad at him and everybody in the room was mad at him. And it was
No, his old lady. Get it right.
His old lady.
The skank was pissed at me.
So, yeah, I wish I would have saved that tape, but I did not.
No, but I could clearly see the guy that runs that room coming back and blaming you for starting the issue. That wouldn't have surprised me at all. If you told me that the booker, the manager of that room, I'm not going to mention his name, but I know the guy, and it wouldn't surprise me for a second if that show got over with and he went, why'd you piss that guy off?
Well, I don't think he was in the room. It was the regular MC there and a guy that used to run it named Big Mike.
Right.
Big Mike.
Yep.
Big Mike was nice, but
Big Mike was a great guy.
They were not coming to help me. I was one.
It took the cops in Melbourne, Florida, and a big Iowa farm guy who was down there on vacation, getting some sun, just getting away from a week of manure spreading.
Coming to see the female comic.
Coming to see the little lady on stage. That's all I want to do.
That was a memorable gig. But I also, one of my favorites is when me and you were in Milwaukee, and I picked you up in Chicago, and the Milwaukee we went to?
Yeah, it was just north of Milwaukee, Germantown, Wisconsin.
Germantown, that's what it was. And they had those gigantic horses, stuffed horses. For those that are in the comedy business, the condo always seems to be a catch-all for any of the crap that any of the people at the club don't want in their house anymore. And they had those big, gigantic stuffed horses. And there was like 6 of them. And they were just laying around the living room. And we arranged them in sexual positions before we left.
I forgot that. Oh, my God.
It's like this. It was fantastic.
We're just juveniles. We're just at the end of the day, you break it down to the least common denominator, and we're kids.
I know, but it was so much fun, and I just wish I would have been able to see the person that had to come clean the condo when they walked in. Like, what the?
I quit. I'm not cleaning it. I'm not cleaning it. I'm out of here. And what we did would have been the least offensive thing done at that condo. Exactly. What you're getting set to go on stage. Is there anything that goes through your mind right before you walk up? I should have peed every time. Every time. I don't care if I just came back. Right before I walk on stage, I'm like, I think I have to pee. And when I get up there, I'm fine, but it's every time. And the only thing I ever say to myself before I walk up is just my little personal mantra. And I always, and it's up through the mud. Mm-hmm. Like a load. Up through the mud? I like that. I like that, up through the mud. How often do you write? Do you allocate time to do it, or does it just come to you? Well, things have changed during the lockdown. Before, I was writing every day, but I was doing 30 to 40 shows a month. So in the day, I'd do my thing, and I was usually working on my show, and then I'd try that joke that night. And, people don't understand that taking it on stage is a part of the writing. That's how we edit, that's how we figure out our timing and whatnot. And right now, I write about 2-3 days a week during the lockdown. But one of the things that I did is I wrote my entire act out word for word. I mean, just the whole complete thing. And it's given me a chance to look at it as a whole, like an entire piece instead of a collection of bits, if that makes any sense. It does. And I reading over my material like that has, it made me realize some missed opportunities. And that's what I've been doing. Well, I think it helps too for editing. Right. If you're going to go through and write it out word for word, I mean, anybody who's, in this business who has a tendency, and we all do, you get wordy. And I think it was Seinfeld made the comment, if I can tell the joke in 10 words, can I tell it in 8? Can I tell it in 6? And just really work on the word economy and just make it, have the, maximum punch that you possibly can. Well, I like that too, but sometimes I also feel that you have to give them a couple words, less words is not always best. I mean, I'm not saying being overly wordy, but sometimes having a little bit of an embellishment in there or a description word will give them just a beat to catch up, especially if you move quickly. Yeah. And also a pause. I mean, a well-placed pause is gold sometimes. Oh, that makes all the difference in the world. Yeah, whether it's, the joke It's going to be completely solid. But yeah, if you're pausing in the wrong spot, it just goes wasted. And then all of a sudden you put that little break in there. And that might even been an accidental break that you put in when you're doing the joke. You're taking a drink of water or something because your throat's really drying out. And for some odd reason, the crowd cracks up at that point, and you got to sit there and make that mental note going, okay, I need to take a beat here at this particular spot in order to get this kind of a reaction.
Well, that's, that's how you flesh out your right. That's one of the things you flesh out when you're on stage, you write a bit. And yeah, I always, I like to, if I think of something funny during somebody else's show, it's just a word or whatever. I love to give that to somebody else. And I also like when somebody, another comic will give me a view on something and, that I haven't seen it from that direction, Some people get a little offended if you try to say, oh, you know what about this? And they're like, I don't need your help. And you're like, okay. Your joke's not as good, but whatever.
How hard is it for you as a female comic to date? Because guys, I know, and there's a good friend of mine here in Vegas, Kathleen Dunbar, comedian from Wisconsin, originally lives out here in Las Vegas, and she was telling me some of her, horrific dating stories. She's, been with a guy now for a number of years. He's a great dude, but she was telling me before that guys are so insecure, and they meet somebody and like, oh, what do you do? I'm a comedian. Oh, I'm pretty funny, and then they start wanting to tell jokes as opposed to just sitting back and letting the conversation come to them. How many horrific dating situations have you run into once you tell somebody that you're a comedian?
Pretty much all of them, actually.
It started
get out of the dating park over here. But
it started with that Iowa farm guy in Melbourne, Florida, and then went downhill from there.
Yeah. Well, my dad said my problem is that sometimes I have a tendency to be too mouthy. And that was his cheering me up speech. I'm like, thanks, Dad. I don't know what to do with that. But yeah, I had one guy that told me he didn't care how funny I was never going to be as funny as Larry the Cable Guy. I think I left him in that restaurant, when he was bringing out people that he didn't think that I was, well, why don't you tell this joke like that guy? And I'm like, that's not what I do.
How many dates did you go on when this guy fired the Larry the Cable Guy cruise missile at you?
We were about 15 minutes in the first one.
You should write a book about this. I told my friend Kathleen that you got to write a joke. You got to write a book about some of these horrific dates that you've been on, because a lot of guys, they just don't. They're just too insecure with being with somebody who is more of a who's getting more attention than them.
I'm a bit of an oddball, though. I mean, on stage, people would naturally consider I'm an extrovert, but actually, most of the time, I'm a loner.
Really?
Yeah, most definitely.
What's your happy place?
With my dogs.
Nice.
Yeah, better than any humans I know.
How many dogs have you got?
Well, I only have one, and she's a little Yorkie. She's 15. She's blind and deaf, but she still runs the household. And my son has 2 dogs, which I call my grandpuppies. And grandpuppies are great because you can love them and give them treats and shit. But if they make a mess on the floor, you're like, woohoo, that's not my dog. That is not my dog. That is your dog.
What do you think you're going to get out of this pandemic on the back end as you go back and you look through all this shutdown time? Because you work cruise ships quite a bit, and obviously clubs as well. But as you look back on this whole time off, is there any positive takeaway that you're going to get from this whole thing? I know it's a sea of negativity that we've been going through the past year now.
Yeah, I've got to spend some good quality time with my family and my parents and my old dog. I told you 15.
Right.
But after month 2, she looking at me like, what are you still doing here? Why? But yeah, and a friend of mine, I've been helping out on her farm. She was getting married, and apparently there was some politics on her farm. I didn't know there was politics on a farm, but I went out there to help her, and sometimes I have the general public come out there, and not a fan of the general public, I have to say. If I was writing a Yelp review, it would not be favorable. 90% of people are nice, but...
Politics on the farm?
Oh, yeah, somebody, move the chalk. Damn it. I don't understand. So everybody quit the farm, and she was like, "You want to come out and help me?" She was about to get married, and I was like, "Okay." And so that was like my first real job, or it wasn't even really a job. I was just helping them out through a rough time, but that was the first time I've had a job that wasn't a comedian in over 2 decades. Do you know that you can't tell people to go kiss your ass in like a business setting?
I was unaware of that. Please share.
There's HR. You got to go talk to people. I'm like, what? I don't understand. I get to tell people this through a microphone. What do you mean I'm not allowed to say that?
I can't even begin to imagine what it would be like going back to a regular gig. I swear, I would just literally buy a leaf blower and a lawnmower and just cut grass.
Well, there's a good reason I'm probably not helping at the farm anymore. We're not allowed to tell the customers to kiss your ass, but whatever. He started it.
You started so much shit, like 3 cows walked off. I mean, this aggravation.
Or people ask dumb questions like, what do these oranges taste like? And I'm like, cantaloupe. And they're like, really? I'm like, no, dumbass. They taste like oranges. They're oranges. Why are you asking dumb questions? How big are those watermelons? I'm like, the ones that we can both see? Yeah, about that big. People are stupid.
So the routine was, Valarie, we need to see you in the office for a second. Jesus.
It's the barn. We do our business in the barn.
Of course you do. So you're on the, as we wrap up here, which, by the way, ValarieStorm.com is your website. Follow you on all the social media platforms. You are on situation. You're on the dating game, and you have to go out with someone from 2020.
Okay.
Is it Dr. Fauci, Buffalo Boy from the Capitol riots, or Hunter Biden? And what would the date consist of?
Well, Dr. Fauci looks like he's in bed by 7:30. So that'd be a no. Hunter Biden looks like he hasn't slept in 3 days. And he probably hasn't. So that would be a no. I have to go with Buffalo Boy. I like a dude in a hat. I always like the hat. And I think that first I would insist that we go eat buffalo wings, just so I can just like slowly bite into it while I'm staring at him. And then we'd go out for drinks later. I think I know a place in Wisconsin we could go.
Oh, nice finish. One more number for me. All right.
Okay.
Pick it. Here we go.
16.
Okay. As this thing stops again, Valarie, thank you so much. ValarieStorm.com is her website. Find her on all the social media platforms. See her when she comes back to you. 31 again.
Okay, now I got to go play the lottery.
Now you got to go play. It was number 31. Trust me. I tilted it, but it was 31. Trust me. I wouldn't lie to you.
31.
All right, I'm gonna go take Cialis and go find someone here in the next 3 days. That's the best. You're awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Derek.
Thanks for listening to A Drink with Derek. Find out when Derek is appearing near you by checking out DerekRichards.com. See you next time for A Drink with Derek.